stayed about the same all the time.
Yeah, I don't think
I
so.
like Josie.
Okay. Well, now we gotta see if we can get to some storytelling, huh? Maybe I should have had those papers in here to remind myself that. Clunk. Well, one thing I was thinking about on the way in, I don't think I ever asked, were you named for somebody else back in the family when it comes to your name, Joan?
I know.
Just an Norwegian name, huh?
I guess so.
A good old Norwegian name. What about Joanne? Is that just a name you like?
I don't know. I guess it's about
For that. I heard that the brothers and sisters named me.
well, I don't know who named you.
I don't
I
know
know
that
I knew I was fine with Ben.
There you go again.
It's only Beth is all her name is on the hospital.
Oh, really?
Because Ethel would get up there to see me, but Dad never come home. I didn't know. He named everybody else. And I guess I had talked to him about Joanne. And so, anyway, I finally said Joanne Beth.
Oh, see, you were the only one that Mother had a choice in there.
I heard that the brothers and sisters named me after Dad. I was the only one that wasn't named after anybody.
Well, Joe, I wanted to call...
Named for her dad,
I
Joe.
wanted to call Nancy Joe, but he kind of frowned at that, so I said, well, I generally got the middle names put on. And when he wanted to name you Hilma, well, that's an odd name. But then we stuck May on there. I thought, Hilma May, that sounds nice.
Supposed to have been born in May, huh?
You were supposed to be, but you went
Waited till June.
You went 6 days into June.
Yeah.
Well, Wesley's after his grandpa, and you say you're not after anybody? And children
Neither
that...
Ethel or Irene is in the family anywhere.
Ethel, Dad's got an aunt, Ethel.
Oh, which
There's
son?
there's Ethel. I don't know whether her name
And
was
his mother?
It was one of Grandpa Hughes'
Nothing
sisters.
there when I went through genealogy. There's no
Oh.
Ethel.
Grandpa Hughes' sisters?
No Ethel.
Well, she got lost in the cracks.
You must have.
So then Tilda's after your sister, and Hilma after you, and Helen after...
Grandma Hughes, Francis.
Helen Gilchrist. Oh, they liked Helen Gilchrist. Well, she helped us a lot.
Yeah.
He went down and worked.
Was that Grandma Gilchrist's name?
Yeah,
Helen?
Helen, and then it was Francis. But the Gaylord, when it come to, well, what is it, an E or an I? I said E. And so all he put down is France. On her birth certificate is Helen Francis. And now Tammy named her girl Catherine Francis after her mother and Helen. And she insisted they spell it with an I. I said, you talk to the gal down here. I said, that's named Francis. And she said they just about shoot you to put an I in a lady's name.
Yeah,
I is
that's
for
a male.
boys. But
Yeah.
that's the way her mother spells it, she says.
Helen received a Protestant Bible from Mrs. Gilchrist. She's the only one that went Catholic.
I see.
Let's see, who did she give the Bible to?
Me. So then Elwood's after your brother, Nancy after Dad's sister, Melvin after Dad's, Melvin Wall, that one?
I suppose.
And then Dad, Joseph.
Yeah, Melvin Joseph, but Melvin. But that's with working with names at the school. I mean, they're spelled goofy and everything else. And it's just because of the way the parents
Spell.
Joshua, Joshewa. Joshua.
Well, it's like Jeanette for your
Yeah, yeah.
one. Russell
Yeah,
said I
Rus-
spelled it that way and it's going to be that way.
Russell's, well, I heard somebody say that that's a French spelling. And some grandmother back in the family must, I don't know if that's can't remember the way they spelled it.
Long ago.
But,
Yeah, there's a lot of the grandchildren that spells the name different than what I think they should spell it.
yeah, quite a few of them there. They use the same names too. I find that real interesting, that with all the names in the world, that they will pick
They've got some.
Ryan or Corey or, you
They've
know.
got some different now. And Dylan and
Oh, yeah.
Dan and
Yeah, they're different names.
Catherine is the first Catherine.
Well, now, your dad, he came over with his parents when he was only 2 years old, is that right?
About 2 years ago.
Something like that. And was he was the oldest in the family then?
Yeah. It was. And then there was, let's see, 6 boys and 2 girls in the family. Probably more. Joanne picks up on all of that.
I
when
got
we
it
go
in
to
one of those
Jamestown.
papers out in the car that Joanne had given me, and Ethel had given me, you know, the genealogy that way.
Yeah.
But,
I know Joanne, I used to think it was Dad and Mike and then, but I found out it's Dad and Tony and Mike, his brothers. Then Benny and Paul and Martin and Mouse. Is that so?
quite a few. They settled in Marietta first before they went up to North Dakota.
Yeah, see, Grandpa lived down here in Lake Carl County down there, down Marietta. That's where they grew up, like my dad grew up down here. But then when he got married, I don't know how many years he was married or whether it was the homestead, they could homestead in North Dakota.
Yeah.
So there were 7 families went up to North Dakota.
Oh, like a wagon train?
Yeah.
Oh.
That way. I found that, and not from my dad, but from when we went back up there visiting, and Mrs. Mogard was the last one of that bunch, still living. And she never came up with the wagon train, but she came as soon as her husband got settled up there. And she was the one that told me there were 7 of them came up. And then she outlived the whole bunch.
Oh, it's been a tough trip. She didn't travel with them.
She didn't travel with them. But
I
they,
wonder if that isn't making too
Yeah,
much noise.
let's try shutting it off for a while.
Yeah, it's better.
windows opens.
So your grandpa got married in Minnesota then, and went up there.
I mentioned so.
And then, Illinois.
Yep, seems to be good.
They homesteaded up there, and then in,
How did they have to go to Minot? Just went so far and said, this is it, or?
that I don't know.
Yeah.
They probably had it lined up where they were going to homestead, because they all took,
A section or whatever.
yeah, whatever it was, next to each other. And then, see, Dad's first wife passed away, and she had the 2, Arlen and Llewellyn. And then, I don't know what your dad bought where our place is now, down in the coulee there, Mom.
Yeah.
See, and then, that's where the rest of us was born.
And how did your mother come over then? Did somebody send for her to come,
Well,
or?
Uncle Walsett was her brother, see.
And he was one of those 7 families?
Yeah, but he went back to Norway,
Oh.
and then he brought Mother back. So I don't know how many years, well, it was 1909, I think, when, or 8, when she must have come from Norway. And two of his sisters, Uncle Walsett's sisters, come over. Mrs. Gressel was his sister too.
Oh.
And she passed away. So there's, as far as I know, she had cancer of the breast. But that's the only relation that I know of that had cancer. And then she passed away, and then he went, well, of course, I guess my mother came, because I can still remember going down to Crystal. But, then of course she married Dad. We lived there in where our place is now.
And your mother had complications after Lillian was born? Is that what?
Yeah, she did. I really don't know. She had gallbladder trouble for years. She'd get spells. And we'd heat plate in the oven and then take that in and she'd put it on her tummy and she'd get over whatever it was. But she died of a, what did they call it, gastric, gallbladder something or another.
Intestinal or something.
But she had been poorly ever. I think she had blood clot in the leg too.
Oh. So Lillian was what, like 3 months old or?
Lillian was 3 months old when Mother died. I know I was 2 months from being 12 years old.
Oh, yeah. Well, what do you remember about starting school up there when you were?
Well, the first year I went to school was the first year we had the consolidated, what they call consolidated. And we had a nice big school on the corner by Walsett. Uncle Walsett, gave part of his land, so there was a store and 2 elevators there. That was called Walsett. But the school was set on the corner, more on Colson's land. And that's all gone now.
Was it one big room or did you have several rooms?
Well, we had 2 great big rooms, because it took all grades. I think one room had probably to the 5th or 6th grade, and then the other room, it just went to 8th grade. Although one year, there was 3 kids that had to go to high school, and they set them up in the cloakroom, 3 desks in the cloakroom. I can't remember if they must have hired another teacher for part-time. But I know they had, and then after that, they sent them to Deering to high school. My 2 sisters, I know, they done light housekeeping in Deering when they went to Tilda and Benda went to school.
How far away was Deering?
4 miles.
And they stayed there?
Tilda and Amanda went there, you say? But what about Amanda and Lillian?
Amanda went into,
Luella.
Luella didn't go on to.
She didn't go out of school.
Yeah, she went. Amanda went into Minot and went to high school there. She
Housekeeping too.
yeah, light housekeeping with Aunt Nellie.
Oh. And Aunt Nellie was Uncle Martin's sister. Oh, wife. Oh.
Yeah, that's how Martin met her, is through Amanda.
Yeah.
So, Amanda was doing light housekeeping for Nellie and Martin came to see her or something?
No, Amanda would bring Nellie out to our place, and Martin met her out there.
Oh.
And then they started going together. They got married. And there's the gal that comes here to see Melvin that is Nellie's sister. And that's her daughter that comes here. So Melvin, she knew all the Harsteds, so Melvin had me come out to supper one night, that's a year or 2 ago now. And then, see, this lady was there, and she knew more about the Harsteds than I did.
Yeah, because you had moved away.
I left there when I was 18, and see, she grew up
Yeah.
amongst her. And I've got a picture of her, I'm sure, because Ragnar used to come out and spend the weekends out to our place. She had a boy and a girl. I'm sure I've got her picture.
Well, when you started school, then did you walk from where you lived in the summertime?
Oh, in the summertime, we walked a lot, yeah. Or in the spring, when the field work
You
started.
went kind of kitty corners across the fields?
Yeah, we cut across country, so that far then.
No.
So it was a mile from the school to the corner west of us.
By the cemetery.
Then we'd come, no,
West.
the cemetery's the other way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We, like the schools on the corner, you go a mile and a half east to get to the cemetery,
Okay.
and see, we come south.
Yeah.
Better wait and get my,
Yeah.
then,
But,
a lot of times, we had double buggy with a single horse on it.
oh,
Put Phil's in, so we drove a horse back and forth a lot of times.
and then you kept it at the school during the day?
Yeah, they built a barn at the school, had 4 stalls in it, and different kids, you know, would come in and horse and buggy. In the winter, I don't think we parked our horses in the winter, because Dad would be home and he'd take us and then bring us back. But some of the neighbors, they had buses, you know, that they rode in. But Uncle Percival built a real nice bus. Let's see, it was tin on the outside. It had 2 seats in it, and they were padded, and then inside the bus he had it padded with, well, mostly quilts, and then he put oilcloth
Oh,
on. So we had a real nice bus to ride.
was it wasn't heated though, I mean,
No.
you just had to, did it close up entirely, so,
Yeah, only the slit that,
for the rains?
the reins, otherwise it had windows, but I mean, you could shut it down real tight.
Is that the one, wasn't there a story about being in a blizzard or something, coming home in that?
Yeah, one of the worst snowstorms they had up there. And Dad, Mom had looked out and seen the storm, you know. Dad and I guess my uncle were sitting playing checkers. So finally Mom said, if you're gonna go for the kids today, she said, you better get going. So it's about 2 o'clock, and he got to the school all right. And then we all loaded up and we started for home, and it was closer to 6 when we got home. Mom had to give us up. She didn't think you know, the roads built up when you, so.
Yeah.
We had that, but they horses, especially the one, she'd get off the road, and then, you know, they had to get her back up on the thing. Before we got half a mile from the school, she had somehow threw 1 foot over the neck joint.
Oh.
And they noticed that she was hobbling. So they unhitched her and went in the barn then at the neighbors, because we had the neighbor kids along. But then, of course, they all got home, but it was us then on the bus. But even from the schoolhouse to Moogard's, he picked in, opened the barn, or the bus so that he could get his ear. And see, he had a mustache.
Oh.
He had icicles hanging. And they cut his face so they were bloody.
Oh, my.
Oh, Amanda started crying, and you couldn't stop her. She just cried. She thought too, you know, we weren't going to make it. Of course, they took the horse in the barn there and let her get her ear good, and then brought her back out, and then we started for home. But she got off the road twice, and then they had to stop, you know, and get them back up on the road. And I know when Dad got home and into the barn, he sat down. And I know the boy said he was just about done in.
How old would you have been when this happened?
Oh, I suppose probably. I wonder, wasn't that storm in 1918? Anyway,
You weren't very big then.
7, 8 years old. And of course, Amanda was a little older, and Luella was a little older. And then I'm sure Alfred was in there.
Yeah.
But if Alfred was in there, then Tilda and Benda had to be in there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It was, we had full busing. But we made her home, and I know Mom was just about out of wood. And she was thinking of having to break up furniture, to keep a little heat. But across the road is where we had our coal shed. And she didn't want to even try to get out there because you couldn't see nothing. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. But the men got home then and they got coal in. So we made that one. But Uncle Gressel, his barn, well, I don't think it was any farther from the house than ours. But the first evening, he tied a rope from his house to the barn. Otherwise, he could never have made it to the barn to do chores. But,
Was that the storm then that somebody didn't make it?
that's the storm when a neighbor to my uncle that lived up by Ryder, he lost 5 boys. Because see, they drove to school, had a sled, drove to school. And several times they'd been kind of bad storms, so the kids stayed at school. And then, see, wasn't that bad a storm, so I guess their dad got after him. He had a big farm, I guess, cattle, and, having the 5 boys not come home to help chores. Anyway, he'd been pretty rough on them, I guess, and so then when this storm, the teacher tried to talk them into staying, but no, they had to go home. And the horses got off the road, see, and the kids couldn't get them back up. And so the oldest boy, he started for home. When the next morning, when the dad started go looking for his boys, he found him not too far from the barn. He just about made it. And then he found the other one about halfway between home and the sled. And then the one boy was standing holding the horses. And the other 2 were in the sled. But the oldest one had laid himself over the youngest one. And there was a little bit life in the youngest one, but not enough to bring him. So he lost all 5 of his boys.
How far was the school from home then?
I really don't know how far their school was, because see, that was up where my uncle lived.
But your farm?
Oh, our farm. Well, when we cut across, I suppose it was 1.5 miles or something.
But when you go around?
When we went the road, it would be, no, it wouldn't be 1.5 miles. When we went the road, the mile was west of ours, and then we had 3/4 of a mile from that road down to the buildings. So, but when we cut across then, it was 1/2 mile, and then we cut across, I suppose it probably 1.5 miles.
Did you take lunches and stuff to school, or you didn't have a food?
We carried our lunches.
You must have had more kids in school than we did in ours. We just had 1 room in our little schoolhouse. In North Dakota, you must have had more.
Yeah, see, we used to have a little schoolhouse like we had here.
Yeah.
But see, they consolidated that first year that I went to school. So they built this bigger, and then they come in,
From farther away.
yeah, 2 or 3 schools combined into this one. And, yeah, that was, a big schoolhouse was still standing there. Several years after I left it there, but now it isn't there at all. First they tore, well, we had big basements. You'd come in the door and you had to go upstairs to go to the schoolroom, or you could go downstairs into the basement. We hooped and hollered in that basement room. Played all kinds of games.
Yeah.
Pom-pom, pull away, and skipped in the loom, and all that kind of stuff. And then you get 2 dozen kids hollering. At one time, the teacher came down and thought he was getting a little too wild. But otherwise, they take off. And then, see, between the 2 schoolrooms, they had these folding doors.
Oh.
So when we had programs or anything, they made the stage up in one end and then folded them doors back and then we can both rooms for people. Yeah, that was a nice school.
Well, now, you didn't speak English when you started, or did you? Did you
Oh, I
mostly speak
suppose I
Norwegian?
knew some because, you know, the older kids had went to English school.
Yeah.
But I had never went, I went to Norwegian school that summer. And we had that in the little schoolhouse then. But after that, we would have a month of Norwegian school every year.
Oh. Well, what did you study when you had the month of Norwegian school? Did you have, I mean,
We had,
you had your regular subjects, or?
yeah, we had Bible study, and catechism.
Oh, it was church school type?
Yeah,
Oh.
Norwegian was church. It was Bible study and catechism
Yeah.
and writing. I got my report card around here somewhere. Officials. Officials, that means behavior.
Oh, yeah.
And I got 98 on that.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So then when you went to first grade, you kind of had to learn the language sort of as well.
I guess so, yeah. Of course, I wasn't the only one.
No.
The other ones were. I can just remember coming into the schoolhouse and I didn't know this boy, you know, that come down the steps. But I remember to this day, it was Glenn Pace, come down the step just as we had to go up. And that's all I remember about the first days in school.
Yeah. How big were you when you started helping in the fields then?
Well, I guess I was doing that before Mom passed away, so it must have been when I was 11. We had to clean barn and get the cows in and start milking them before the men come out of the field.
Oh.
Dad never said anything to us. He'd grab a bucket and help us finish milking, but boy, by the time Arnold was up there, we hurried up and done our work more so that he wouldn't get after us than we did Dad. We had to, when we come home from school, we had to clean the barn, you see, because what did we have, probably 20 or more horses in there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the cow stalls. In the summer, though, we let the cows out, you know, and just brought them in the morning, so it wasn't too much cleaning in the cow barn, but we milk. It was attached to the barn.
They were together.
Yeah. See,
Well, about how many cows did you have then?
I can remember milking 12, and we might have had 14 at times, you know. But I know this one summer we was milking 12 cows.
That's quite a barn full of cattle in the wintertime.
Then you
though.
had to milk the hen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he just had the milk cows in. Then we had sheds out in the yard that all the young stuff was all. And I can remember this one winter anyway, because the hay sheds were, the barn was here, and then they had a hay shed and a cattle barn. No, it was a granary and a cattle barn, and then they had a roof over between these where the hay was stored in. And I can remember in the winter when it snowed and then a big drift flowed in there, they'd go down and shovel out to the door, and then we were in the house there, we see the cows coming up out of the snow bank, and see the banks would get hard there so they could walk. Yeah, we used to shovel out a hole and make rooms in the snowbank. Because see, the drift would come to about 4 feet from the building and then build up. And there, oh yeah, we done many a hole, and we'd make a snow seat so you could go in and sit on.
Yeah.
And you used to tell us one time when you had to go out an upstairs window in order to get out of the house.
No,
I thought you
not aware.
It would drift awful high though, wouldn't it, with
Oh,
out
yeah,
there?
We couldn't see out our windows coming down the snowbanks. but they were always about 3 to 4 feet. No, I don't remember any of us having to do that.
Yeah.
That's a little house in a hurry.
Yeah. It could be, I've heard a lot of stories. See, back then, the house wasn't as big as it is now. We just had, I don't know what you call them, half wall. I think they'd be only about 18 inches or 2 feet probably. And then the roof comes.
Oh.
And then back in 27, I think it was, they tore the roof off.
They raised the roof.
Yeah, raised it. So we had, when we was kids, we had 2 rooms. The girls' room, we had a door on ours and everything. But then you come up the stairs and turn the stairs, and we went back in the other end where the boys' room was. They didn't have the stairs. And we didn't have no rail around that hole.
Oh.
But Mom had a couple of trunks sitting there. So, we didn't walk into it. But one night, my brother got up in the night and he was going to go downstairs, and he come to them trunks and who put this stuff in my way? He climbed over the trunks and fell down the hole, and he caught the doorknob down there right under his chin.
Which brother was that?
Alfred.
Alfred. Oh, for goodness sake.
Who put this stuff in my way? It's what he thought, and he
Yeah.
was walking in his sleep.
Oh, my.
And here down the stairs he fell.
That first step will get you.
Wasn't he lucky?
Oh, yeah.
But all he got was, could broke his neck
Oh,
or an
yeah.
arm or something. But he was a lucky guy. He got kicked by a horse when he was trying to get a team out of the bunch. Horses went in a straw stack in the winter, see, and he wanted to get this certain team in there, so he got the horse that he could ride. He went and tried to sort that horse out of there, and one of them turned and kicked and split his foot right across, and he would hold it up. It didn't bleed. He'd drop it down, you could see the bone, and he could hold it up there. And I've been so surprised that he hasn't had a bad knee, but he says, no, that's not. Of course, Dad took him into the doctor, got it sewed up, but still he had to go out and ride the binder or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
His leg was damaged straight. The same way when I had to run away. I had to get on and go back. I was going to walk, I wasn't going to ride. But, and then again, the boys got ahead of me. And so I had an ankle like that. But when Dad come out, he was helping me get ready to go. And the same dumb horses that run away with me. Only when he brought the one horse out, and he see she had a big split along her leg. Well, then see, that's how the boys got ahead of me, was because he took that one in the barn and had to harness another one and bring another one out. So the boys were half a mile ahead of me down the road. And Dad said I had to get on and ride because I wanted to walk. No, so of course I rode. And then he said he'd be there and help me hitch up, you know. And the one that had started the runaway was next to me. I was on the horse next. So I kind of had her choked up a little bit.
You rode bareback?
Oh, yeah.
With the harness on.
Yeah, the harness.
Well, how old were you when you had your runaway?
Oh, I suppose 16, 17.
Well, you have to tell the story of the runaway now, so we get that on there. You told. That was after, or that was at the end of the day when that runaway happened?
Oh, yeah, it was in the evening. See, we were done
Headed for
plowing.
home.
But see,
Oh, you were plowing?
Yeah, we were plowing in the fall.
Oh.
And we was plowing up in the homestead. You see, that was a couple miles from home. And
that was north of Walsett, or, I mean, whatever.
yeah,
Right there.
Did Grandpa, when he went up there, then he just had a little sod hut or a little house on that?
Had a small house, you know, just, I suppose the walls were probably 6 or 8 and then just a roof.
Claim shack.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what they lived in until you got remarried.
I kind of think so, yeah. And then he bought the place where we live, where our place is.
So you were up
see,
there plowing.
Yeah, we were up on plowing, and we were going to be done the next day, but we were out of water anyway. We hauled water up there, see, with a big tank so as to water the horses at noon. And that night, why, the boys, you know, going to be good to me, let me go get the tank, and I wouldn't have to walk home. Well, I took and tied 4 of the horses behind, and then, you know, you generally have 2 on the tank, but I had the 4. So, sure, I started for home and got to Walset. Train was coming up the track, but I knew I was going to get across before the train came. But we didn't more than get across the track, and the one started to kick and run. And
Did the train go its whistle?
no, it wasn't. The train didn't have anything to do with them running. We figured out after the belly band had come loose on this one, and I suppose it hit her leg or something, and she started and kicking, you know. And I had a rod about like that across the top of the tank. That's all I had to push against to try to hold him. Well, at first I started just taking half hitch, and the lines were getting wrapped up to my elbows. And the teachers were coming from the school to go get their mail. See, the train was coming in, and they were going to go get their mail. But they seen me coming. They all 3 I lined up against the school wall. Well, 2 of the horses behind, or 4 of them, they all broke loose and took off.
Oh.
And so I was just coming down with the tank and the 4 ahead. But by the time I got to the school there, you know, because they were practically lifting me up, because I only had that rod to kick it, I happened to think, boy, they can jerk me off in here and drag me. So I unwrapped my arms and let them go, because they were going straight, you know, down the road. But then when we got over the hill, and then see, we cut across to home. And when we come there, the grader had wet that day, and you know, he dug a new full ditch. And I tried to hold him down the road, but they got so close that the one horse here hit that grader ditch and went head over heels. Well, that broke that line away from me. And then the tank hit, well, that went like this. I thought it was going to go over, so I jumped. But I still hit the one line. But, I hurt my ankle, and I thought, well, I'd let him go. And I was glad they swung in there on their own, and I knew I couldn't hold them down the road. Uncle Walsett was coming from his unhitched, you know, was coming. He had 7 horses, I think, walking behind. What a mess that would have been if I'd have come toward them, you know. But anyway, they swung off there then. And see, the neighbor was just up the hill, so I walked up there and got her to take me home. Because these 3 that I had left on the tank, they didn't run straight. The one that went head over heels and broke loose, he trotted up, caught up with the boys. And then he just walked on home with them. But these other 3 on the tank, they went kitty corner this way and come around a fence and got in the corner up there, and then there they stood.
Yeah.
So when I got the neighbor to take me home then, when Alfred was home with his horses, so I told him what happened. He went up on the hill and got them 3, and then he got in the car and went to see where my other 4 were. And 2 of them had got tangled up in a plow. And I can't remember where they found the other 2, but they must have been fixed up. But anyway, what a mess.
So the one that was cut or whatever the next morning, where had that one been? Was that one that rolled, or is that the one
No, that was one of them that I had turned loose, and they figure that, see, they found them up there by the plow. Whether she fell or got into the plow somehow, she got her a big slit along her leg.
How many horses did Grandpa have at that time? Just for work horses?
Probably 50 or more.
50?
We had 27 or 8 in the barn that we harnessed
Horses every day?
when spring's work started. Yeah. And then fall work started. Through the summer, of course, they didn't need that many, but see, we had 8 horses on each plow. And then we had a gang plow with 5 horses on. And then Dad generally had 5 or 6 horses on whatever machinery he was running. So we had them all.
So when you plowed, did you ride on top of the plow?
Yeah. It, well, you've seen gang plows or so. We had triple plow that plowed 3 furrows. And then we had the gang plow with it when we had 2 plows on it. So when we went down the field, we took 3, 6, 8 furrows.
You just kind of staggered so that,
You all stayed together, kind of, one behind another.
We stayed behind each other, see. The triple plow went here, and then you'd go in the furrow that he made, and then the other one would go in the furrow you made. There was 8 furrows there.
Girls, oh.
Sometimes we even stuck a sing, I can remember going with a sulky with 1 plow. Follow all these, I don't know why he thought he had to have 1 more furrow. He had the kids to put on there, so he
Yeah.
had the horses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, what did he grow? Mainly?
Wheat, oats. We had a little corn, but we didn't go into corn too much. Although we had the section south of the house all in corn one year, and then the one east of the house. That year we had real good, we picked corn, or husk corn. They made us a stick that fit in the hand and over the thumb, and then husk the cob's young. That's the only year I remember that we got corn with, we made corn.
So you did all the work though, I mean, like you went out and,
You could do every job there was, huh?
Yeah, I think I rode on every farm machinery we had at that time.
you had to work it up again in the spring, and then you did the seeding, and then you did the harvest, cutting and the harvesting, and then,
Yeah. And then the thrashing. We had to, and we cut it and chopped it. That's a job that I didn't like to do. After supper, we'd go out and shop.
Did Grandpa own all this machinery, or was it kind of neighborhood?
No, he owned it all. And then he had half interest in another thrash outfit. So we had our own thrash outfit. And, I suppose we went to at least a dozen farms around. And first years, they ate in the house. Everybody cooked and fed them in the house. And then finally Dad built a cook shack. And then that cook shack went with, of course, whoever you was thrashing for. They would pay you to have you feed the gang. And I know every night or every year at the end of the year, they'd all come to our house and they'd be all in the front room, figuring out what they owed and what they, because some had bundle outfits on that went, and some hired the grain haulers. And my brother and I hauled grain all the time. Of course, Dad never really paid us anything. But Uncle Walt said we hauled for him, and every year that he settled up with Dad, he'd look us up and give us a silver dollar.
Oh.
So he'd give us a dollar.
Were there other girls that worked out in the field like that too?
Not,
In the neighborhood?
they did the last year or two. Heskin girls used to come haul and grain.
Uh-huh.
But whether they worked in the fields otherwise, I don't know. But they were the only girls that I saw, haul grain to the elevator.
And that's where you met our dad, huh? He came up to work in the fields?
Yeah, he'd come up. He must have come in either 25 or 26. 3 different years, Anthony, before he got married. One year, Dad always went into Deer and to see if there was any guys he could hire when it come toward thrashing. And he went in town that night. And anyway, here comes a car to our place. One of these old Fords that they had made a box on behind, so it was just the seat and the box behind, 2 guys, and we sent the boys out to see what they want. And of course, they told him that Dad had hired them and that he told them that they could sleep in the barn. So Frank, Dad never was much to joke or tell stories, but Frank had them boys a laughing. And then they didn't want to let Johnny especially, he didn't want to let him know he was laughing, so he'd come in the house and tell us what they said, and then he'd go back out. And then they took the lantern out, and Frank had took the lantern. Oh, this is what you got to, the heck was it? He said you got to light a match to find or something like that. Johnny, he just, so that's.
So it was Frank and Dad that came up there together the first
Yeah,
time?
Frank and Dad came together.
I didn't know that.
And then Dad, then I thought, next morning I get something to make breakfast. I said to Dad, well, if you've got 2 more guys, I don't have to go out in the fields today. Oh, yeah, he said. Yeah, you do. And we had another hired man too. And anyway, I get my overalls on and go out and get the kid, and then we were cutting hay. And so he sent this one guy that had been there before out with me to cut hay. And he put Frank and Dad on cleaning up the thrash machine, getting that ready. So he hired him about a week or 10 days before he was going to thrash, but he thought better grab him. He seen him take snooze.
Oh.
He seen anybody when he went in town, if he seen him light up a cigarette, he wouldn't hire him. He'd seen them take a chew of snooze. Well, they were pretty good.
So you had to do housework and go out and do farm work both?
Oh, yeah, at times they did. Of course, that day, I think, I don't know whether Luella was home or not. Amanda didn't do too much around that. Because, see, she went, September, when the harvest and stuff like that, she went to school, so she wasn't around. Weekends, she'd come home. And she generally cleaned up the front room. She never done nothing for the kitchen, on the kitchen. Generally got down and scrubbed that floor a couple times a week, at least. But the front room, that was nice oiled hardwood floor. Didn't take much more than a damp mop to clean that up. But if she done that every week, well, she was the one that done straightened up the house. But I never saw her scrub the kitchen floor. But that's another story. And then Luella, when she left, then of course I didn't finish my last year of school because Dad said one of us girls had to stay home. We had to hire help again in the spring. And one of us had to stay home and make the meals. So I got the job. Amanda would, and she cried, I want to be a teacher.
So the first year though, you went to school, you said
Yeah.
Grandma passed away before you were 12?
Yeah. First year we went to school. When I was bread baking or clothes washing, I stayed home. Otherwise, Amanda probably I don't remember Amanda missing because she was older and I think she must have been done grade school, so she was in town. But Tilda or I would, when it was just a dinner meal for her to make, or she'd be. That went the first year. And then, I think Lola stayed home until probably November, and then she left. Well, see, that year even, we finished out one.
So you'd been like 7th grade or something that year?
When Mom passed away. And the spring that I was in 8th grade, would have graduated when it was in March when Dad said, we started getting help again to plow and do stuff. Then I quit school. So I missed the last 2 months of school. But
So you never graduated?
the poor teacher, she sent me home her lessons every month. But I didn't get them read. So when it come, she told the girls that she hoped I'd get there for examination day. Nobody cared whether I went for examination day or not, so I didn't either.
No.
And you had Lillian too, about 2 then, so
By the time
you had to quit school.
28, she was born 22. And let's see, I quit school probably in 26.
Must have been before that, if you were 13, and about 23 if you were.
23, yes. So she wasn't much more than just toddling.
And you just all kind of took turns taking care of her?
No. Well, I suppose more or less. But she slept with me and everything, and I can remember that she had copious cough, that she couldn't breathe. But Dad, he just told me to fix her up good and then lay her on top of my chest, her chest against mine. Hell,
You got a lot of sleep, didn't you?
I did it. We pulled it through, and she did. But see, it was different when the older girls, after I left and stuff. And I can remember my sister saying that Dad was sitting on the doorstep waiting for her to come home from teaching, I guess, because she hadn't felt good when she went to work, and he was so worried. That wasn't the way when I was home. I hope you ain't getting this wrong.
Nobody will ever see it, Mother. We'll put it in a vault till 50 years from now or something.
But anyway, see, I can understand now why Dad was away from home so much. He'd just tell us what we're supposed to do, and he'd go visit his friend, or he'd go to town and play checkers in the evening. He wasn't around home too much. I can understand that now.
Yeah.
But by the time, that I left home, I guess he must have got maybe one of his friends had passed away too. He had a friend that lived 12, 14 miles from us that he'd go visit quite a bit. And when my, Auntie Walsett, and then her sister would be Dad's cousin. They got up a birthday party for Dad in February one time. Dad got wind of it, and he left home. And he stayed away till probably 7, 8 in the evening. Then he come down to the neighbors, and he called home to see if anybody was there. And he thought that was the greatest thing. Boy, Auntie Walsett and my cousin, his cousin, they wouldn't hardly talk to him because they got up this party. The whole neighborhood was in there. And he left. Well, he tried to tell Dad and I, they pulled a shower on us before we was married. See?
Oh.
But they had the shower for, Dad's friend that worked on the trash outfit with us. And then a neighbor girl, they were getting married the same time as we did with Sephora's. Well, see, they came to our house for a shower, and they had gifts for her too. But they must not have told her. Anyway, they wanted us to go get her and bring her down. So we had to borrow Dad's car. And Dad told Joe, he said, take off and don't come back, he said.
Oh.
And he was going to do that. And I said, no way. I said, did I want him, you know, to do that? Because I can remember what a steward was when Dad did it.
Yeah.
So we brought him back to the house. That's the shower.
So you had all the neighborhood come in for a shower then?
Yeah.
Is that where you got some of those wedding cups that you still have?
We had 2 wash tubs. They put her gifts in one and mine in the other.
Oh.
And we sat on the davenport and opened our gifts. The men sat with us too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I had a nice shiny china. 6 cups, 6 saucers that I got from Uncle Briscoe. They were real thin china. And then I got, I don't know if you remember them or not, but they were kind of blue Chinese figures on that outside, and then they were orange inside. I got a set of them from my cousin Dina. And we got 2 different sets of those kind of pudding things with legs on.
Oh, yeah.
I think maybe I got one of them around, but otherwise they're good.
So they gave you maybe dishes, or did they give you blankets, or?
No, I think it was all dishes, one kind of.
In those days then, if they gave you the shower, did they give you stuff for wedding too?
Of course, we didn't have a wedding, we just went to the pastor's and got married. So no, we didn't even have wedding gifts.
You went to the pastor's like an afternoon and then you went in and got your picture taken at that
Yeah.
studio?
We went into Deering to see the pastor lived in Deering. We went to his house. And there was the 4 of us, and then of course, Aunt Tilda and Arnold was with us, and then they had 2 with them. So he married one and us.
So that's the other couple that got married with you, was this one that worked on the threshing? And the girl was who?
A neighbor girl, she lived, didn't know her too good because she went to Deering to school, and we went to also to school.
What were their names?
But Hanson. But she was confirmed with us because the pastor in Deering had our church out there too. So he'd pick her up and bring her, so he had the one class at our church. So she was confirmed with me. And then she was married at the same time as us. But they're both gone.
Hanson was the married name, or Hanson was her name?
Hanson was her name, what was the married name?
What was her first name?
Gladys.
Schwartau.
Yeah.
Shorthouse?
Sure.
Oh, you remember.
Yeah, she remembers.
Mom used to tell the stories more when we were.
Oh, when you were little, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't.
And then Swartow's come to the house one time. She had twin girls, I think it was, and then I guess later on she had a boy. But he was quite a bit older than she was. They lived in Deering. So one time, Dad and I went up, we went to their place, visited them. Then the next time I was up there, Dad had passed away, but it was at Amanda's. Amanda and I went into Deering and saw her. But she got married again.
Tell about your wedding ring.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
going to
I
ask
was gonna say,
more.
okay, back to the wedding.
Back to
right?
the wedding, yeah.
Where you got married, and then you went to take a picture, and, yeah.
Oh,
But they
well,
went
the
to
wedding
get the
ring.
rings first.
Oh, after the wedding, you went to get rings?
Before.
Oh, before the wedding, naturally.
Oh, yeah, we had the rings, but he didn't give us the wedding where you put the rings.
Oh.
And I know Dad said to him, he said, you know, we got the wedding ring. Well, you'll have to give it to her, he said,
Oh.
later. So when we got in the car, why he gave me the wedding ring. Yeah, that, we went into Minot and had our pictures taken, and then we went to the show. And that's when the first talking pictures came in. So I saw my first talking picture show that
Oh.
But they looked all over Deering for a gold.
Well, that's what I was
wedding
gonna say, there
night.
must be
We
more
looked
to this.
all over Minot.
Minot.
That's where we
Oh, you
bought
went
the
to
wedding.
Minot?
We
first?
Yeah, well, we went to Minot and got our wedding license.
Oh, yeah, what did a wedding license cost in those days, you remember?
Gosh, don't ask me. But anyway, we looked for wedding rings. See, and I told him all the time I wanted the yellow gold. I didn't want it. You couldn't find yellow gold
Oh.
in Minot. And then one day we went into Deering. It was a Hughes store in Deering. We went in there and there stood a bowl full of gold wedding rings.
Oh.
This was after you were married. So you settled on this white gold ring then you got?
Oh, yeah, couldn't find anything else in Minot, so we bought the white gold.
What did it cost, remember?
Probably not too much. Because we didn't have much money.
Yeah. But did Dad have a car of his own up there? In
Not
the,
at that time, yeah. He come up there then with a car when he come to crash, but then he sold it to some other person.
oh,
And the Dad would take him into Minot and he'd get the train and go home.
oh.
And then when he come back, the one time, just the one time, he took the train and come to Walsall. But the Dad picked him up in Walsall. And then when he left then, why, he went in the fall with somebody down picking corn in Iowa. And he spent the winter in Missouri that year.
Oh.
And then he caught, well, he started out from Missouri with a car, and he got out somewhere, and then something happened. He said that he pulled it alongside the road and jerked the license plates off in it and throwed one plate one way and throwed the other one the other plate, and just left it. And then he went out in Washington there and worked
In Puyallup?
yeah,
In the daffodils and stuff?
berry fields.
Oh, very good. Very good, okay.
And
Yeah.
then when he left there, that's where he had that gentleman you've seen. He worked for Estabrooks. Estabrooks used to be down here and work in the Latin mills.
Oh.
And then they went out to Washington, and of course Beth was out in Washington. So he went out to Washington to Beth's place, and then these Estabrooks was there, so he worked with them in the berry fields.
Wow.
And then he come back from there in July, I think it was, to our place again, and he called from Minot, and Dad went in and picked him up, and then he worked that fall again. He worked 3 different years at our
Uh-huh.
place before we finally got married.
So then when you got married, how did you come to Minnesota? Train?
Well, no, Dad bought a car.
Oh.
That year, I think Dad farmed 9 quarter sections, and he gave a quarter section, whatever they could get off quarter sections to each of the boys
Oh.
that was working. All that was my brother and Joe. And so we bought a car. We had a Ford train car, I think they called it. Had the curtains on the
Mhm.
side.
Do you remember what it cost? When
No. Dad never told me.
he never
what
told you what
anything
anything cost.
And I never asked him. But anyway, we came, we left home, went into Minot and stayed overnight at Aunt Nellie's. And then we started out from Minot the next morning. We got as far as Lakota by dinner time, and we stopped there to have dinner. And they'd never come and waited on us, you know. We sat there and sat there and sat there. Finally, they got around. And Dad said, wait till we get to Minnesota, I'll show you service. He said. Well, we got as far as Crookston that night. So we stopped at a restaurant there, and it must have been kind of a fancy thing, because we went in, and the guy met you at the door and took and seated you. He seated us, all right, and there we sat. They didn't even come and take order. And it was a long time. Of course, I got laughed and had the joke on me. Service, sure. shore service arrived. But we stayed overnight in Crookston and then come up to the place just about 11 o'clock the next day.
Did they know you were arriving that day?
Did they know he'd been married?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because she wrote to Dad. See, Dad never wrote him. I don't know.
Well, now you had Wesley by the time you left Dakota, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Wes was about 9 months old, I suppose.
Oh yeah.
We come to, I know we come in September, and of course Wes was born in April, so whatever.
Mhm.
But anyway,
Had you lived with at the home place right after you were married then, when you had Wesley, or did you have a house of your own?
no, I kept on doing the work at the
Oh.
house the same as I did
Oh.
before. Only that we got married. And I had my baby at Wesley at home,
Oh yeah.
and a neighbor lady came in. And then Dad was a doctor in Derry. He went back. And then see, 2 weeks later, Amanda had her baby, but she was in the hospital in Lima. And I know Dad come home, oh, I wished I had her here. He didn't like her being in the hospital in Lima. But anyway, she had her baby then, see, he was just 2 weeks
Uh-huh.
younger than Wesley.
So, did Dad have a plan in mind to come back and farm, or did he in Minnesota? Or why did you up and move?
I don't know what his plans was, but he wanted back here. My dad wanted to set us up in farming up in Dakota, see, but even trying to, Dad would say, you can have this team of horses. Well, we had so many horses. So he kind of picked out a team and gave to Dad. Arnold found it out, and I know we couldn't have them horses. No, he wouldn't give them to Joe. And then Roy and Amanda moved in. Shut off.
You'll never see it. Promise. Nobody will ever see it.
Anyway, Amanda and Roy moved in too, see, so there was Arnold and Roy and Dad. And anyway,
Was Luella, wasn't she married too then?
Luella left for Washington when...
Had they lived in the house too? Luella and Jack?
No, Luella didn't get married till she went out to Washington.
Oh, okay.
She went out to Washington that year that I quit school, or at Christmas time.
Oh, I
And I
see.
quit school.
Okay.
Took care of being home, and Luella went out to Washington and
Okay.
met a guy there, and then she called home, and Dad told her to come home. He'd give her a wedding
Oh,
at home. And so she come home from Washington and got a wedding.
wow.
And when I was going to get married, we just went to Parson. But that's all Amanda did too.
Yeah.
It was harder years.
So Amanda and Roy moved into the house then before you left?
Oh yeah, they were there well, when she had the baby anyway. They came to the farm then, the two of them. And then see, Roy helped farm, and Joe was farming, and Arnold was farming. And too many. Dad would
Yeah.
tell Joe what he could do. Dad seemed to like Joe. But Arnold and Roy stood against him. So Dad said nothing. He was going to get out of it and go to Minnesota. Because it was a team of horses, and Dad took him to a sale where he bought a plow and a wagon. That's supposed to have been Dad's. And he even went and looked at some places for rent, that we could have moved to. But when he got in such a tangle with the boys, why, he said, no way was he going to stay here. So we come back to Minnesota. He knew his way around over there.
Yeah.
He got work in the pulp cutting. See, Knight was a great one to buy up the land around to cut. See, of course he knew what county land was coming up because he worked a lot with the county stuff. So he'd always buy up the land, and the boys would go cut timber. Like Sandy said, Harold Knight told her that he could remember when I come to the woods, he said we didn't have a, what was it, we lived in a tar paper shack and didn't have $10 between us. That irked me because I said, we never did live in a tar paper shack. First year we was there, we lived with the folks. And then that spring, Dad bought the 40 up there where we built the house. Well, that wasn't a tar paper shack.
No,
But
no.
anyway, I got kind of disgusted with
Yeah.
Carol Knight and I haven't cared for him since.
Well, that must have been kind of hard to move into your mother-in-law's house when you didn't know her from nothing. And just,
Are you kidding?
I'm just priming the pump, Mother.
I would have rather went and lived in a tent.
You would have rather lived in a tar paper shack, huh?
Yeah, you know, so.
Yeah.
'Cause she wouldn't let you help her with anything.
Oh,
She washed her own clothes and done all that, and cooking, she done the cooking. And
Huh.
you take care of your kid and you wash your own clothes.
comprehensive.
And she said, I raised my family, you can raise yours. I guess that was when Hazel, Frank come to you. And of course not, they didn't live there, they built the house right away after they got married in July and they built the house. And,
That was down where Helen is now.
yeah, down there.
Yeah.
No, the fall of 30, I think it was. Then the deer hunters come, you know. George and
Yeah.
most of the boys come home. So we had the shell of the house, and she said she just as soon we moved out so that, you know, she had room for the deer hunters. So we moved into the house. Heck, they wouldn't think of moving into a house now that's just 2x4s around.
No.
Oh, we put in insulated, they ain't gonna live in it. And we lived in that house, I don't know, 2 or 3 years before we ever put anything on the 2x4s.
Yeah.
Of course, we had Rawson paper
Yeah.
around.
Well, I can remember your wallpapering and going around the studies, you know, yet when I was little.
Yeah,
But you went up there in September, you said,
we come back here in September.
and then you never built till the next spring?
Dad, they were logging our piece of ground that winter, and then Dad bought it after it was logged.
So then it was that deer hunting season.
Well, see, we came
Deer
back.
hunting was November still?
Yeah. And it always started on the 15th and went for 2 weeks.
So you had that whole summer with her too, so you lived a whole year with them?
Just about a year.
When the
It
baby
was-
died.
Over a year.
Yeah, just over a year. Because I suppose it was October when we moved into the house, and we came up from Dakota in September.
Well,
See, the baby died
That's
spring.
that spring.
did you had the baby at home, I suppose?
At Grandma's.
You with her?
Mrs. Schultz.
Oh, Mrs. Schultz came up.
I had Mrs. Schultz for every one of you until Melvin and Joanne. When you went down to see Mrs. Schultz.
But Mrs. Schultz wasn't there for Nancy, was she? I thought it
I
was
think
Mrs.
a doctor
Pierce.
came out.
Yeah, a doctor came out for
Yeah,
Nancy.
and then I had Mrs. Pierce, because she lived on the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the doctor came out for Nancy, and the last two went into
And,
town, and then the doctor
yeah.
was out. So
Yeah.
they were all born at home, but Nancy and Joanne.
Melvin and Joanne.
Melvin and Joanne.
Yeah. Well,
Nancy was born at home, but see, we was in that car accident and stuff that year.
were you were pregnant when you were in the car accident? Oh, I never put that together.
And when we got out of the car, felt all wet, and I thought, oh gosh, probably I miscarried. So I turned around right away and asked Mrs. Randall, she was out, asked her. No, she said it wasn't blood.
Yeah.
And she had wet her clothes too, and she got hit. So it was a whole week, see, that I had see half hour between times. But no harder, just, there was pressure there. So finally called a doctor, he came. and
What
gave me-
month?
Gave me a shot in the arm, and she was there in 25 minutes.
What month was that the car accident was in? I mean, the summertime?
Yeah, either June or July.
Oh, okay. Well, back to the baby you had when you lived up there with Grandma. Where did you live when you lived? Were you on the upper story or that baby?
No, we just lived in the house.
You didn't have a special place or? Huh.
All the stuff we brought from Dakota was stored out in,
Oh,
what did they call it, that house anyway, where
the Ritz
storm shelter.
Oh, the
root
Ritz cellar, yeah.
Yeah, you could go down, there
Yeah.
was, water ran into the corner
Oh, yeah.
of the root cellar. So it was nice and cool.
Yeah, that must have been a tough time.
Yeah, we moved into the house in the fall of 30.
Did you get the lumber to build the house off the place, or did you buy
No.
lumber otherwise?
We bought it off and, I don't know how come that got into it. See, they logged the 40 west of our 40 there that winter. Hit a sawmill down there in that corner. And somehow or another, Hoffman and Two Inlets had that lumber. Anyway, we got it to somehow through
So first,
Wilson owned the sawmill that was down there.
so first you just built the big room, or did you build the two north rooms at the same time?
Just the big one. That's all we had. Dan didn't want a petition at all, so we did it. And then, let's see, it was the fall. Must have been 39 that we built the bedrooms on.
Oh.
At first, we
So
had the
you
little,
can- you
we had
can-
the little lean-to at 34, must have been before Yama was born, for Grandpa.
Yeah.
Grandpa come to live.
My grandpa was living with us when she
Yeah.
was born that morning.
Yeah.
It was so cold it froze ice. And grandpa got up and went outside, nice sunshine, you know. He got up and went outside. And by the time baby was born, he was darn near frozen.
Oh.
And he could have just as well come in and sat in his room.
Yeah.
But he waited till after baby was born.
So how long was Grandpa's lean-to on there? When did Grandpa come?
He must have come in April.
Of 35?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because he lived by himself up there. Grandma died in 34, and that first winter, he lived by himself up in the house. And if Dad didn't see a light up there, you know, he'd run up there to see what was what.
Yeah.
And then Grandma had passed away in November that year. Right after hunting season,
And what did they say she died of?
heart attack.
Heart attack.
Her death certificate says apoplexy,
What's that?
which has something to do with stomach or whatever.
Apoplexy? Oh.
Well, that's all I ever heard.
Yeah.
Was,
I thought apoplexy was like when you got really mad and, you know.
No.
I will have to look it up in your dictionary.
I thought you always said that she cooked for the deer hunters that year and she was complaining of stomach
I don't know.
well, I don't know his grandma. I know they took her into town, said it was heart attack, and she was in town 2 days or 3 before she passed away.
Well, now, your heart can affect your stomach too, can it?
Yes, when your heart starts
Yeah.
hurting, you can be throwing up in no time.
Yeah.
When you throw up, then they really think it's
Yeah.
heart business.
How come Dad took that lean-to off of Grandpa's right after he died?
No, it goes on there till 36, 30.
I suppose when you were gonna build the full length then.
Yeah, it was
Oh.
on there until.
'Cause I remember him hooking old Kit to that
Oh, do you?
and skidding the room away.
Uh-huh.
That was our woodshed.
Yeah, I remember it was, I remember being told it was our grandpa's old lean-to, but I don't remember it there myself.
Yeah, Tilda remembers that.
Oh, the hauling it away.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because he had, what's that other horse's name? Well, no, I guess. Anyway,
Mhm.
I
Kit,
just remember Kit
Kit slipped.
going down on her knees.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's what Tilda remembers, because,
Mhm.
see, what the heck, she wasn't more than 4 years old. I
no,
didn't-
there's
Oh,
30.
you don't
Oh,
remember.
she must have been more than that then, if you didn't build on till 39, you said.
36, he put their bedrooms on.
Oh, 36.
Oh.
Yeah, because I don't ever remember him not
Because
being
the-
there.
The year after Grandpa died, then they pulled it.
Yeah, so she
She
would have
would've
been,
been 3 then.
Because,
3. So you were 5 old enough to remember.
Helen was born over in bedroom. Alfred was born in, what was the boys' bedroom. So, I know it was 36 they put it in, or else 37, but I know the bedrooms was there when Helen.
Oh, yeah. You had what was the girls' bedroom to begin with then? Because I can remember you and Dad having the boys' bedroom.
Yeah.
Got to be too many girls, huh?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, let's see, must have been 46 about the time they put that other one on,
No, I wonder if those weren't put on about 39 or 40, because I was awful young when those were put on.
huh? Were the south ones?
I can remember as a little kid sitting on the floor with the sun coming in through those south windows, you know, and watching the dust motes dance around. That's one of my first memories.
Yeah.
But those rooms were there. Well,
I liked
they'd been there for several years before we got electricity, and we got that in 46 or 47. Yeah, there we go, 46.
48.
48.
You said you got it when I was
Must have
born.
been 48, because I was just barely home to get used to electricity and I was gone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I
electricity.
thought you always just say electricity come when I was born.
No,
Must have been 48.
I think 48 we got the electric. The post was out there in the middle.
Oh, yeah, for a long
For a
time.
year or more before we got the electric. Because Mrs. Gardner held the line up, she wouldn't let them come across, wouldn't give them easement across her piece of ground. So us over this one, we didn't get.
Well, those rooms must have been put on, because when I first came home from school, it seemed like we went between the corner of the house and that tree there, you know, where we'd always lean the bicycle. And that would have been with the south lean on, wouldn't it?
When they had all the rips on the south side, huh?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Used to leave your bicycles on.
Oh, yeah, the one right on the corner of the house, we always.
That wasn't on the corner though, it was more in the middle.
No,
Yeah, I
not
remember.
that one. It was out,
It was
it was
right on
out
the
to
corner.
the east, right on the corner. The one we put the bicycle on.
Well, it was 46
For what?
for
For the addition.
on the south.
Yeah.
Seems to me that it's 10 years.
But I don't,
46 I'd have been 11. I
Yeah.
think you
It
had
had to
that
be
before
before
that.
that. I
You
think
had it
you-
before then.
I think you probably got your birch floor in the living room maybe in 46. It was supposed to be so nice and then it turned out to be
Oh, yeah.
groove or whatever wobbled,
Yeah.
The grooves, the tongue was too thick. for it.
tongue and groove, but the planer wobbled in between and they didn't fit together.
Oh.
Dad had to pound it
Yeah, I'm sure that those rooms must have been there around
I-
40 or 41. Well, Nancy was born in 41, and we probably didn't have them yet
And
then.
there wasn't, they weren't there then?
No.
Uh-uh.
Oh,
No, because there was just the north room,
But
and
now
they
in
brought her out
Melbourne,
of that room and
yeah,
put
I
her in her
remember,
lap.
yeah, I remember that coming
no,
out of there.
Melvin was born
He was born in
at
the
the time he
hospital.
would, yeah, but that was the north bedroom we had been. Because I know when I come home, I don't know, somebody had been sick, Nancy probably, and threw it up in the bed, see?
Oh,
And when I come home, of course, Daddy just kind of cleaned it, he hadn't washed it.
first thing you had to do was wash the bedding. huh?
Yeah.
Well,
And,
that's, I sure
I
thought
thought
they
it
were
was
there
just a
earlier.
while before she was born.
Hmm.
And she was born in 46, so I thought that's the summer that we put her.
Might have been.
I don't,
I might have just,
I remember you sitting and setting up jigsaw puzzles right up to when you went to hospital with Melvin.
Yeah, 'cause that was
And
Christmas.
it was, yeah, it was Christmas and,
She didn't want to go in on Christmas Day, and she was having labor.
yeah.
Yeah, the night before Christmas, Dad took me down to Mrs. Shaw's to check. And she said, yeah, it started, but it was way high yet. And then she had the flu season. So I said to Dad, we can't get her out, cold weather, suppose. If we get her out and she gets sick, Mike Schultz would really be mad. He didn't want her to come in before. So anyway, then, like I said, I started having pains about 10 o'clock on the 24th. And they only come every half hour and not harder, just the same. And like I told him, it's a sat on Christmas Day. It didn't, wasn't any different. And then next morning, Dad was going to town. I said, I want to go and meet you. So we did.
that's funny, I thought if those rooms went out in 46, I would have been at 11. It seems like I should remember all about it. And I don't.
Yeah, I'm sure we didn't have them before 46.
I don't know.
I think we got them. Oh, yeah, and she was
Must be.
born in December.
We were going to school when they were built on. I can remember coming home and seeing the,
Oh, who built the, Dad built them up?
Yeah. I didn't even know the first bedrooms was going on until he worked in the sawmill up north of Joe Tillman's. So we had a couple mules, they were tiny mules, and that's what he drove up there. But here, one night, here comes this tail of mules down the road, all loaded with lumber. Here he had the lumber to build the bedrooms.
I remember the big stacks and stacks of lumber we had in the yard that we always played on.
Yeah.
In and out and hide and seek and around the lumber piles, and they were all stacked along the field where Piper's barn is now. Just
Yeah,
big and big
yeah.
stacks, you know.
Would you have what?
I don't know who stored them there. Who stored the lumber
Was
there?
it lumber?
Yeah. It was lumber. It was stacked really high, and you were always after, you're gonna fall off them piles and hurt yourselves. We
How old were
climbed.
you then? When was that?
I don't know what years it was, but we used to run around and play on them things. Wasn't it that, what was their names? Borkerding or something? Borkerding or something that used to have a lumber camp up north of us when the Indians were there. And
Indians were
we
cutting.
carried milk and stuff, vegetables and.
see, I don't remember any of that. I was just young
Yeah,
enough, I
yeah.
don't remember that.
Wes,
But it was during that time, we used to peel pulp down on this other driveway.
I
Dad would
remember
bring
the peeling
in the
pulp bit.
and lay it there, and anytime we had a spare time, we'd go down and strip
And then we
peel for him.
kept marks on the calendar.
Yeah, how many sticks we'd done.
Uh-huh.
Used to get paid then?
Oh,
I
yeah.
suppose, I don't know, penny a post or something,
No,
I don't know.
I think we got a nickel a post at
I
those
think
days.
maybe
It was
did.
fence posts?
No,
No,
big logs.
long poles.
Big logs.
But you could strip one off and then just pull and run, and get the thing going the whole length. And
We
some
had
of them went easy and
Leather
some of them
gloves and
hard.
peeling irons laying there all the time.
Yeah, we could work on them whenever we got to them. And I really
I
think it
know,
was a nickel a
we
pole.
had a lumber store there. It wasn't Wilson, I don't know.
Just kind of,
Dad worked in the sawmills all the time. I don't know what kind of a remark he had made, but it must have been, he got girls all the time when he worked splitting logs. And anyway, he said it to Ed Stewart, and Elsie laughed and laughed. And I said, tell me what he said. No, she listened. And then, of course, where the heck was he working? And see, we got Alfred. Anyway, he'd made some kind of splitting the logs must have been why he got so many girls. But she wouldn't tell me what he had said. You know, when they laugh.
When did you hear it then?
Well, I never did hear what he said.
Oh.
But it was something about him working in the sawmill, splitting logs, or sawing logs. But what he said, and I think that's so, they start laughing.
Yeah,
Oh,
well, that's not
but
right.
Joe said this to Ed, you know, and I said, what did he say? No, wouldn't tell you that.
No, that's not right.
But anyway, they thought it was cute remark or something.
Yeah.
So Dad mainly worked in the sawmills and stuff?
Dad
In the
worked in
woods.
the sawmills in the summertime and cutting pulp in the winter.
he was in the CC camps then.
But
When-
then,
Later on, then?
No, early, when Tilda and I were little.
yeah, the year Tilda was born. Then he worked in,
He had
went
to
in the
walk
CC.
to, what, Loveless Lake up in the park?
Oh,
One camp he
my.
was in.
And then he went to,
No, they didn't come home.
he'd stay up in camp. Then he
So
went
you
up
had to
to,
stay with two little kids?
2, and I suppose expecting, huh?
yeah,
Well, if he did that in the winter, though, Tola was born in October.
Yeah.
That's it.
He went into the CC camps, I think, in July. And then he was up in the CC camp when Tilda was born. It was only I and Grandma Schultz there. And it was October, see, and the fire went out. And finally she said, you can't have this baby. That it just comes so far. And I said, well, what's the problem? She said it comes so far and then back, and I just brought. So when I knew what was going on then, when the pain hit, I held her there until the next one passed. But I didn't know why it was taking so long. But it was.
Was that when you said you tied the belts to the bed or something on the Tola?
No, that was when Alfred was born.
Tilda was a big baby?
Yeah, she was another big baby. She was 10 pounds or so. And so was Alfred. And according to my,
Was she the only one that you labored like that, where they'd slide back? Well, I remember the scale, used to tie the baby up in a dish towel and hang him on this scale and pull it up, and
yeah,
That was your weight, yeah.
it was a spring scale, and they could hold it, and
but we also put a 10-pound sugar on it, and all that weighed. 10-pound weighed good, but I don't know.
yeah.
Ounces, yeah.
Hmm.
So that was the official weight?
Well,
How did you get?
You were weighed in the hospital. You were 9'9".
So you're official.
And I think, no, it was 9 something.
How did you get Mrs. Schultz when you were having Tilda? Did she come and stay when Dad left, or
No,
was gone, or?
I think Frank Hughes, I think, went down and got Mrs. Schultz.
Oh.
See, I had Margaret Schultz staying with me then, all through October.
Mhm.
So she went, I can't remember whether it was Frank or whether it was Gilchrist she went and got. But anyway, one hour went and got Mrs. Schultz and brought her up there, see, and then Margaret took Ethel and Wesley down to Hazel's
Oh.
and stayed there, you know. And then it was just Mrs. Schultz and I then. Of course, she was with me and forgot all about that.
Mhm.
And she was getting worried that I couldn't have that baby. Been a doctor, he'd have swit me, I suppose, and we'd have had, well, she couldn't do that. Just.
No.
She got right in the bed with me and tried to push me and squirm so that I had a baby. Yeah, that time she got right in bed.
Hmm,
But that's after she told me
yeah.
what the problem was.
Well, then after Dad, how long did he work in the CCs?
So the next spring,
Oh,
they moved from Loveless up to Squaw Lake. And then, see, there was, several of the neighbors, Walter Knight anyway, and Ed Stewart, and Dad, and Brightbaugh. I don't know. There was several from out Ponsford Way too that worked up there as well.
Did they come home months?
Generally, from Squaw Lake, I think they come home every week.
Because he used to get, what, $1 a day? But then did they check on you somehow to make sure that everything was okay, or they were just gone and if there was trouble, they got a message?
Knight, I know, come home the week Tilda was born. So he went up to camp and told Dad he had another baby girl. And can't remember him coming home so much from Loveless.
So how long, if he named her, how long, or did you name her then?
Will Tilda?
Yeah.
No.
So he sent word back to what name it was?
I don't think we named her till we come home that weekend.
It was Rita that says, by golly, I wouldn't wait for no man to name my.
things were different back then. Things were different.
Yeah, because he would say what we're going to name them before they were born sometimes. And I didn't have no special name. Let's see, what was I going to name that? No, Dad, when he said no, I probably suggested something, but he said no. Well, okay.
Well, I've always thought it was, different, that Pansy Opal had, to me, such a pretty name. How did that happen? The rest of us got plainer names,
Or
Was
the
that,
Pansy Opal, that's not after anybody either.
No, I think I named her. No, Dad named her Pansy, and what Pansy was named, he had somebody he knew that was Pansy,
oh,
and so he named her Pansy, and I said Opal. Pansy Opal was my name.
I always thought that
Opal,
was,
was that the birthstone or?
Well,
You think?
yeah,
or-
same thing. I guess I just picked an O for initial for my mother.
yeah.
She was Olene, I could have just said Pansy Olene.
I always thought that was a pretty name, though.
I guess I kind of liked her. Pansy Opal.
Oh, the older girl, Walsh girl, was Opal at that time too. Charlie
Oh.
Walsh's.
But I don't think I knew anything about the Walshes. It was years that I was.
She hadn't even
there.
lived up there that long, and they sure didn't travel or get news. or-
No,
I didn't know
Back and
nobody.
But you might have heard that little bit of gossip.
I doubt it. Didn't know much about them until we started going to church in Shady.
Well, when you first lived up there,
Dad sold the car to Curtis Gilchrist, I think, the first year or so we were up there. So when the men went to town, they rode with George too and got in there, I think, in the 30s.
so they didn't ever go with horses clear to town, or did they?
Not after we come back
Yeah.
here. Unless Grandpa did once. It seems to me he made one trip to town with horses. At
That was an all-day thing then, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if he made it in a day. Elva Weeks lived,
Went in and stayed over and come home the
I
next
would
day.
think so,
Elva
yeah.
Weeks lived in there somewhere where, this side of Pat. I think this side of Richard Gardner too. In that area she lived, so he'd get in town, get his stuff and get back to Elvis and stay overnight. But
Are we wearing you out with all our questions? This is kind of a long session.
I'm thinking your tape's gonna run out.
Oh, when it runs out, we'll be done then. Till next time.
I didn't know she had that dumpling on when we started.
That's good.
I looked over there and I see.
Yeah, I got to cover up that light so you can't see that.
See, mine doesn't have a light on. Everybody says, oh, it's not working.
Uh-huh. Well, that's what you get. Well, Joanne, can you remember when we went to see Aunt Beth that time out there in Washington? She told some story about how they lived when they first went up there. And were they in a tent? You don't remember how that was? I wish I'd had a recorder then because she told about,
Oh, when Grandma come up?
yeah, when they
Yeah,
first got
come
up there.
in a wagon, I suppose they had it covered.
She said they were back on behind the ridge when
Yeah.
they first got there.
When Grandpa come up in the winter and see that flat, he thought, it was nice flat field. Well, most of it is swamp.
Yeah, right.
He didn't know that, but when they came up, yeah, they come up in 1902, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I think they had to,
Oh, Dad wasn't born. No, of course not. He was.
he was.
But isn't there a story someplace Aunt Beth walked alongside the covered wagon?
She may have told us that or something.
I don't think Beth came up with him.
Oh,
She stayed down highway with one of her aunts for a few years.
she told us about being in a tent, be out there behind the ridge,
Yeah.
and how they had lived. But I don't remember. Wish I had it.
Yeah, I know they lived in a tent over, and then Grandpa dug into the hill, and
And
I
built
think
the-
by winter they were in there. But then too, they only had a little bit. And then
Yeah. Well, now, did that house have a pump inside of it, or was the well out
Well, it was
outside?
Across the road.
Well, that's right. Now I remember.
over
now.
there by,
Yeah. Yeah.
And Grandma had flower beds and stuff.
Yeah.
toilet was down.
Yeah. Was Maggie Straw that got married on the way up? Then must have been on, from Iowa to here.
Oh.
Because there's right up somewhere in the stuff I have.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember hearing about that. I know,
Maggie Straw was Grandpa's sister.
Yeah.
Elva Weeks was
Cousin.
Was Grandpa's niece.
Grandpa's niece.
Yeah.
it was Mrs. Strauss.
Our dad. and
Our
Elva
dad's
were
cousin.
cousins.
Our dad's cousin.
And then see, her sister married Bob Massey. Elva's sister.
Another mix-up.
Then she killed herself with wolf poison, I
Oh,
guess.
really? I never heard that.
Yeah. Told Neil that was a bad mixture of blood and should never gotten married again. After that.
Don't mix that blood together.
Yeah.
Mrs. Bob Massey killed herself with wolf poison.
Yeah.
And she was Elva's sister.
Yeah.
Dad's cousin.
Yes.
I know, I've heard that she died, but I don't remember.
Oh, yeah.
We'll never know now, because
Nobody knows what happened to him, huh? Well, when did she do that? Was that, after you were grown up? After you were,
Oh, no.
when you were real young?
Hubert was older than Neil, and Hubert must have been real little, like 4 or 5 or something.
Mm.
Because Hubert was around cats a lot.
That happened before I met Joe.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he told about that Frank and him had been down to Hubert's.
To Bob's.
The outlaws. See, because she was their cousin. And then they left there, and see, they rode the boxcars and stuff out west. And he said, while they were riding that one night, both of them had the feeling that something happened. Must have been just the night after they left him. Anyway, he said that both Frank and him said that something happened. And then they found out that she had died.
So this ESP thing goes back in the family, huh?
think
I
it
know,
was. Tilda was a great one on picking up that when Dad was living.
well, there's been several times here that I would think, I either think I should call or I should call, and then find out
I just
something
ignore
happened.
that stuff. I have too darn many scary things.
Yeah.
I just ignore it because I think that stuff's not, I don't want it to happen.
No. Well, they say you can either suppress it or work on developing it, all right.
But she just couldn't taken anymore or whatever Bob?
I guess he was a womanizer, yeah.
Oh,
I don't know, that's what I've heard anyway from Grandma and stuff.
yeah. But you mentioned Dad and Frank riding rail cars.
They always,
They jumped the cars and...
that's
Logoed all over.
yeah, Dad rode the boxcars for a long time before he.
Did he tell a story about when you run to catch a train that you better get a hold of the front part of the boxcar because your body would kind of swing around, and if you got a hold of the back part, it'd like...
Throw you.
It'd throw you under,
I
yeah.
don't know, he probably told you guys stories that I never heard. But that's how he traveled out west. When his car broke down and he throwed the license plates, they went and caught the train. And then, they had cops on
Oh, yeah,
the
the
train that,
railroad bulls, when they
yeah,
call
they
'em.
chased him off if they could catch him.
They weren't nice about it either.
No, they weren't. Stories he told anyway. And then sometimes they'd get in the boxcar. He told about being in the boxcar instead of riding up on top. And some guy got fighting with another guy and he pulled him out. He probably rolled down the track, maybe died.
Mhm.
But the train went
Who
on.
knows?
I know he had a 1912 car.
Your dad had 1912.
I think it was Ford, touring car anyway. And then the years that I could remember, he either had Chryslers or Studebaker.
So your dad was one of the richest guys around, though. He had that big battery thing in the basement there.
He was one of the first to get things.
He liked to have things.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Because
got
you had electricity and you had
what they
radio
call
and you
the
had telephone.
Delco plant. They call it, see where we had the batteries. We got electric lights. Most of the other ones were putting in those kind of gas where you had to go and light them. But we got electric.
And that was all off a battery thing in the basement. Did you have electric in the barn then?
Oh, yeah,
You run the barn too.
and when you thought the batteries were going, there was a motor that you started up and charged up the batteries.
But you had lights then, and you had telephone, and you had radio, and
Yeah, we had telephone.
All of that,
I
and you
remember
were back then.
telephone from way, I guess first I can remember we had telephone. But then when the radios come in, why, Dad was the one that got one of the Foxier ones. Atwater Kent, my uncle got, and we had 2 or 3 knobs he had to turn. Well, Dad, I can't remember now what he had, but it was a smaller kind of thing and it had earphones. We listened to earphones. We could get a lot more stations on ours than Uncle got on his.
is that the only way you could hear it, is on earphones?
The
So
first-
only one person could listen?
No, he got, I think we had 4 receivers or stuff. And then, see, instead of putting them on, we took the one earphone off so 2 could listen from each set. I know we had 3 sets, so we might have had 4. So, you could separate the earphones so we could.
So what kind of stations did you get, though? News, or music, or?
Music, Davenport, Iowa, we used to get real good music.
Fibber, McGee, and Molly, huh?
Oh, yes, yes, we got them. And Kate Smith was a good singer that we used to do. Shenandoah, Iowa, I think that's where that comes from.
So then you guys got radio when you guys were little.
We had that power pack.
Nancy
Didn't we
was
first?
born when
Yeah,
Dad brought the
Nancy.
first radio home and gave it to Mom.
Yeah, and
With
it,
the power pack, and we heard the
Pearl
Pearl Harbor
Yeah, I
on
can
it just
remember
shortly
her.
after we got it.
yeah.
Because Nancy was only
We
7
were all in
days
Mom's
old.
bedroom, right?
Yep.
Sitting around on the bed
Because
listening.
Dad brought, I think it run off battery.
You thought the
Yeah.
road was gonna end for sure.
He made the wire went from where we used to have it into my bedroom, so I had it right there by the bed.
Yeah.
And in a power pack, like a battery?
And Mrs.
Yeah,
Teal
it's a special
and
power pack.
always called Nancy the Pearl Harbor baby.
Yeah, there was. that close.
And Dad
George
would
came
bring her.
over the Sunday after she was born, and they went out in the woods to pick up some pulp or something. And Dad told him, and he said, "Why can't I hear something first?" And then anyway, then all the time, Clara Crawford.
Those batteries cost, what, $6-7 or something, or I don't remember.
It was a lot of money in
It was
those
a lot of
days.
money, because if the battery ran down, we couldn't just go get one right away every time. It just depended on when we had the
And there
money.
was no way of recharging it or whatever, so you listened to it very
Yeah.
little.
Well, we probably listened to it more than we should have, because we'd run the battery down. We
That's when,
listened,
when you heard all the mysteries.
we listened, yeah, that was the mysteries, squeaking door, interesting.
Blood on the Cat.
Blood on the cat.
She wanted to
Um,
listen to that, and the squeaking door, and I'd go to bed.
The Green Hornet,
The Green Hornet and,
Mr. District Attorney.
yeah.
Oh.
What's that mystery one?
She was about like you, she wanted to listen to all them stuff, but she sat there and listened to it where ways down the city, she'd get some of the weirdest things, but it'd scare her, she'd shut her off and go to bed. But Ethel sat there. and
My
listened.
kids shouldn't hear you say that, because I keep telling them, don't listen to that stuff, it just puts ideas in your heads.
Well, I can remember going to bed and then Dad would turn the radio off a little louder so we could hear our programs, and then go to sleep.
Yeah, that program was Inner Sanctum that came on with a.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
That
door
was
would
the
open.
squeaking door.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the
And
same
then
program.
they'd have these other things that were Blood on the Cat, the subtitles.
Yeah, yeah. Then we always
Gene
listened,
Autry and all them kind
yeah,
of
the
things.
music programs, and we listened to, of course, like Kevin McGee and Molly and Jack Benny,
Mhm.
any
Yeah,
of those.
Rochester, Jack Benny.
And then the soap operas. We listened to soap operas.
What was it, Ma Perkins?
Ma Perkins,
Mhm.
Judy and
Stella
Jane.
Dallas.
Judy and Jane was a big one.
But it doesn't seem to me I
What did
listened
they
to-
do back in those days?
You'd be surprised. It was, Stella Dallas, I used to be able to say that all the way through. She was from a little mining town, and she came and was trying to make her way in the big city, and she had this daughter, she was just giving the daughter everything,
Ma Perkins, Stella Dallas, I remember them.
Ma Perkins worked in lumberyard with her
You
sons.
know, Mrs. Pierce lived down at the schoolhouse, and she wanted to come up and visit me, so as soon as dinner over, she'd hike as fast as she can up to my place, so as to get there by the time Ma Perkins started.
Oh,
Yeah, in Lum and Abner, we didn't listen to them much as far as I could remember, but I know Cliff has mentioned Lum and Abner.
well, they're on Bill Hunt now.
Yeah,
Every time I hear
He's
them
still-
come on, I turn them on.
Yep,
I never
me too.
took care
I
of
can't
that.
stand them.
Um,
And
Well, they got
Audrey
'em
thinks
to-
they're just the greatest thing. She listens to them on the way in the morning and tells about the lump.
Yeah.
but Judy and Jane, we used to listen to them, and One Man's Family, Pepper
Yeah,
Young.
one man's family, Pepper Young,
That was a
But
big one.
I don't know whether I listen to Lum and Abner too much, because Dad always liked them.
Yeah.
But as soon as they come on, I shut them off.
they're- They're too, I don't know, beneath your intelligence or something.
Yeah. Well, something else
So just
before,
think back in those days, that's what people thought was really something.
Well, look
Are
at
we
the people, look
sophisticated
at the
now?
people that think it is now. I still think that's
They
the
used to
greatest
always say,
program.
buy doggies, I think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Well, you know, a lady called in, buy doggies, she had this other thing to it, and one lady would call in and said, no, that's the way they taught back
Mhm.
then.
Yeah,
You know, I haven't heard them say that for the last
but
month.
it was, that wasn't what they said. She had some other, that wasn't by doggies, it was something else. You know,
Yeah.
they had the biggest
Yeah.
argument on the radio here, just lay down that thing.
something I wanted to ask about though, I was telling my kids about how I used to get groceries. And do you remember way back when you went in a grocery store and you gave the man your list? You didn't go around and pick stuff up.
I don't.
Don't you remember that?
I
Do
didn't
you?
go to the grocery store, too.
Oh, well, maybe
Always.
they'll think I'm telling stories on them. Cliff can remember that though, so.
Yeah, I guess they did a lot of
But you just had a list with Dad.
it. Yeah.
And
But
he'd
even-
go once a month and get 100 pounds of flour and
But I bet, instead of picking up his own groceries, though, didn't he give the
That
grocery
could
man
all be-
his
Could have
list?
been, I don't know, but all I remember, when we did go, we went around and picked up our own, when Mom would go to Don Brown's, our family store,
Or Bishop's.
or the other one over there.
Butler.
Butler's, yeah.
Well, what did Wool way back when say? What did things cost when you went to town to buy, like?
If you want a list.
Yeah, if you want to listen to that, see the book that Helen's got.
Oh,
She
Helen's got
lost it. Oh, she lost
I
it?
think she found it, but
Oh.
I know.
It was all recorded as to what it cost them to live for a month,
Oh, yeah, for a year.
year or whatever, the first year they lived here or something.
We
It was all
only
in
had
that book.
$50
We should get
all
it and
year.
copy it then if she's got
I
it.
should, yeah.
Yeah, you
I've
could buy
seen
a
it,
sack
but
of flour for, I think it was 85 cents.
That was 100 pounds back or what?
I think 50 pounds.
50 pounds?
And sugar, you know, was probably a quarter.
Who is it that tells about, maybe it's Diane, some of her relatives that left Ponsford Prairie and they had to walk to Ferndale in order to get a sack of flour
Yeah.
in those days, and they carried it on their back from
Oh.
Ferndale to Ponsford,
Why would they have to go to Glendale?
because that was the closest mill or whatever that they got flour
You
in.
had to go to the mill.
There was a lot of old timers that used to have to go to work.
Maybe it was in the Osage book when they had Osage Centennial.
That might be. You know, that book that Johnson wrote from around Mantrap,
Mantrap, yeah.
that was kind of interesting because I found out what Mrs. Warden's name was and what their baby's name was. See, they were both in the cemetery. And we just knew there was Mrs. Warden, and I didn't know the day they died or a year. And in her book, I found out.
Oh.
I think I marked it in our book.
Yeah, I suppose. Go home and wash my hair.
Going back to supper then?
That's what I was thinking, I just about time to go home and wash my hair.
Ellen said she'd be there at 6.
How long was going to be?
So I wonder if we haven't heard from the guy, should we call him?
I think I'll
Run home and wash my hair, be back by 6.
I don't remember ever hearing you describe your mother. Do any of us girls look like her, or do you remember any of your sisters look like her particularly?
Haven't you
or-
seen a picture I have of Grandma? Grandmother?
I have seen one picture, I think is all, and
That's all
did
you
you
have, isn't it?
tell me that Benda had negatives to it, or somebody?
I got three pictures of it. But
Oh.
the one picture is a nice picture. And Brenda took that and had it remade, and she sent it to me.
Oh,
It would be in the wedding.
I need to write to Benda and ask her if she has a negative. if I
But you
can
don't
get
really
it.
remember your mother too much, do you?
Not too much. Well, I can remember the last year or so that she lived, probably any time that, she really was hurting or needed help. I was the one that stayed home from school. And I remember the first time, I don't know, I suppose I was 8 years old. Anyway, I started sweeping, and I didn't move the chairs, and Dad happened to be home. Oh, you better set the chairs out and sweep them.
Oh, yeah.
And she had long hair and quite heavy. And
Dark
fresh-
hair or blonde?
Dark.
Dark hair?
I'd comb, brush, and braid. She braided in one braid and tied it up.
Oh.
But you had long hair till what?
Just before I was married.
Yeah, but you had long hair. Oh,
Oh, I've had long enough to make a little pug back there.
Yeah, when you were little, that's what
But
you remember.
before I was married, my sister was home from Washington, and she said she'd cut my hair. She told what she called it, and I said, go ahead. And when I got done, I had that boyish haircut. Oh, Dad, he just,
your dad or?
Dad. Joe didn't say much. Dad, or Joe always, your dad, he always liked long hair. Like girls he could sit down and comb, especially after I give you a bath and I'll wash your hair. He was home, I'd send you over to him to comb. He always said I was too hard on combing. He would comb and separate, and, he did pull.
Was your mother big? Was she heavy?
She was, not too heavy. She was more,
Big bone. Tall?
probably Benda's, sister Benda or Tilly's size. A little bigger than Amanda. But, when my cousin from Norway was back here, I was the one that reminded her of her mother and stuff. Because they were big pictures. I've got her big pictures.
Probably the way you moved or talked or something too.
Yeah, but you're not big now. Look at the picture of Beth.
No, Mother, you're thin
You're
now.
thin.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to get pictures now if you're...
Are you too late? Too late?
Oh, I can come back and do that again. Yeah, let me move that bag out of the way. So that's Grandpa at about when he married Grandma, or
No, when he first,
so he'd have been married about 1906, I suppose. Well, anyway, I think I got the dates. And then
no,
that's...
he was married before that because my oldest brother's 1904.
Oh, okay.
Same as, I think they homesteaded up in Dakota in 19...
Oh, then that's Grandma Oline, or
Walsett Harsted.
yeah. It's Oline, not Olina. Yeah. Okay.
That I'm not sure of either.
I think I've always seen it
Because we
Oline.
called her Lena.
Oh. See, that's Cliff's mother, but her mother's name was Olia. Olia.
Or am I wrong there? I've got,
Yeah, I know.
on my birth certificate, I got the way her name was spelled.
Uh-huh.
Might be Oline, because Benda named one of her girls.
How about this?
Yeah, I've
You got that?
I've
Your wedding picture.
yeah, I've got that picture. I guess no, I can't. That one.
Oh,
I've got